Hello everybody and welcome to part 3 of our Anvil series. Today I'm going to be telling you the good, better, and best options for what you're going to be hammering on. Now, unfortunately, this is probably going to be a little more informational than it is going to be practical, since most of you guys starting out are going to be looking to put hands on whatever you can start with. But having a knowledge of what is good, better, and best will help you out as you continue in your craft and maybe have the targets of opportunity to pick up some stuff that's better. The other thing that I want to do is try to make sure that you understand that there are some points the item that you have is the best possible item for you to work with at your level. So we're going to go over all of that as we start out. So again, guys, understand that I'm speaking in generalities. This is a guide, not a rule book. So if you have questions, again, always glad to answer them for you in person, but let's go ahead and get started. So starting off with the good. Now guys, this is for where you are just breaking into the craft. And I really didn't put a bad category in here because the fact is you just need something to hammer on. As in a previous video, I actually made a pudding shank out of with a rock for an anvil, a piece of limestone in fact. There are historical accounts of pieces of granite being used as anvils and working very effectively. So you need something to hammer on, whether that's a piece of large scrap out of the junkyard, which can be steel or can be cast iron. I have seen fire hydrants used as anvils before, so don't let your imagination run wild. Whether it's a chunk of granite or an old cast iron anvil, you are good to go. Now, I put old cast iron anvils in this category on kind of the bottom tier, and let me explain why. There are cast iron anvils out there that from antiquity that are of great durability. Fisher & Oars put some out, but I put them down here because it's rare to find a cast iron anvil in really good shape. In fact, they are much more susceptible to damage than the wrought iron anvils that were their contemporaries. And the biggest issue with that is the fact that they are not easily repaired. Even for somebody like me, tackling into a heavily damaged cast iron anvil is a monkey, and I would not guarantee its success if somebody brought one in to me to do it for money. I would be making all types of caveats. My butthole would pucker up like this, and I'd say, look, I don't know if this is going to work, okay? So if you're just starting out though, as long as you have something that's heavy, that's got that mass up under it, you are good to go. Understand that in Africa, there are smiths that have a 2x2 section of railroad track hammered down into a log that's held between their feet. So if they can produce work on something that small, you should be good to go with everything we have here in the States, all right? A better option though is going to be your wrought iron anvils. And wrought iron anvils are even themselves, and from an objective standpoint, still are susceptible to breakage and damage. And maybe even a little more susceptible to breakage in the body than a cast iron anvil, because wrought iron anvils were actually hammered together, forge welded together out of 5 pieces. 2 feet, a body, a heel, and a horn, and the top plate. Any of those places could be a spot for a failure of a weld. As we discussed previously, horns break off, heels break off, just because there was a bad weld or over the years the weld finally gave way. The great thing about the wrought iron anvil is that it can be repaired within reason. Somebody like myself here in the shop, if a ding comes out or something breaks, no problem. I can weld that bad boy back up and we are good to go. And this is why I put it in the better category, simply because it is a tool that can be worked on. It is a tool that can be repaired. It does not have a particular half-life on it, if you would. However, the best option in the world are modern cast steel and cast iron anvils. Now, this is where the nuance come in, so I don't want you to get confused when I say modern cast iron, because there's a difference between our modern cast iron and the old cast iron. When I say modern, I'm going to say in the latter part of the 1900s, 1920 on. I think there's some cast steel anvils around the turn of the century. Hay Budden was doing that. But the reason I make the distinction is because there are many anvils today that are something called ductile iron. And this is a completely different beast, a completely different technology, than the old stuff. So if you go to a place like a Farrier or Centaur Forge, Pi Tool, NC Tool, I think it's JHM Anvils, if I'm not mistaken, forgive me if I'm wrong, but a lot of these anvils are not just cast steel, some of them are cast ductile iron, and they are super tough. So let me state unequivocally that modern made anvils are far superior to anything that came before. And if you have the opportunity to get a modern anvil, you are so far ahead of the game, because at this level satisfies my needs as a professional blacksmith. So if it can do that, then if any of us are in this territory, we are set for our life, our children's life, and our grandchildren's life. Okay? So guys, that's going to be your three options there, but understand, this right here can get you going, and that's where most of you are going to want to be. So, one last thing before we get going. A lot of people have asked, how do I tell what I have? Well, it's pretty easy to tell if an anvil's old. If it looks rusty and it's dinged up, there's a good chance it's pretty old. Most modern anvils that are purchased by people are going to be in a professional shop, or farriers are going to have more modern looking anvils. It should be very easy to tell. But for the old anvils, how do you tell the difference between a wrought, steel, or cast iron anvil? And I have a little bit of a demonstration for you. So let me swing the camera around here so you guys can see. Forgive the camera work. What I have here is my Peter Wright anvil that I have had since I was a very young man. It's the first anvil that I had. So here's something called the ping test. You hear a lot of people talk about this. Ping test is being able to tap the anvil with a hammer and see if it rings. Now, you can actually hear a slight ring when I do that. That aftertone, that's your ring. Now, if you really want to know for certain, if you see it, if your anvil is touching a piece of metal, if it's in a metal stand, it's not going to ring. All right. If you want to find out, though, put it on a wooden surface. If you put it on wood, you'll get a little bit of ring out of it. But if you want to know for certain, take you a couple of rags, put up under it, be a piece of rubber, give it some insulation there, and check this out. See the difference? That is the ring. That is the sign of a either wrought or steel anvil, and that means she's pretty good. Now, just for a point of reference, I don't have a cast iron anvil, but just to kind of give you an idea, this is a cast iron ladle. It's a Babbitt ladle, but it has a kind of a thunk to it. A cast iron anvil will have that same type of thunk, and there's a tremendous difference between this and this. So that's going to be your ping test. So again, guys, this should be just a guide for you. You know, there is no substitute for an expert opinion. If you have an anvil out there, you know, always send pictures up to the internet, you know, or somebody that's in the know to be able to tell you definitively what's going on. But outside of that, guys, that should give you kind of a rough idea of what's going to be your best options. So guys, again, thank you guys for watching. Please throw your comments down there in the bottom and help a brother out. Hit that subscribe button, and I will see you guys next time.